The proposition, the golden sunset painted the glass walls of the luxury hotel suite in warm amber hues. Camila Santos adjusted her silk dress nervously as she waited in the opulent living room. The 30-floor view of Dubai's skyline stretched endlessly before her, but her mind was elsewhere. The message she had received 3 days ago still seemed surreal. A business proposition from one of the wealthiest men in the Middle East. Rashid Al Fahim entered the room with quiet authority. His presence commanded attention without effort. Tall and broad-shouldered, he wore a perfectly tailored charcoal suit that spoke of Italian craftsmanship. His dark eyes held intelligence and something harder to define. Control, perhaps, or loneliness, carefully hidden behind layers of wealth and power. He moved to the window, hands clasped behind his back, studying the city below. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken questions. Camila had researched him extensively before accepting this meeting. Oil fortune, real estate empire, connections spanning continents, yet no family, no wife, no children. At 35, he remained stubbornly single. When he finally turned to face her, his expression was unreadable. His voice, when he spoke, carried the weight of absolute certainty. Miss Santos, I have a proposal that may seem unconventional. Camila felt her pulse quicken. She had imagined many possibilities during the flight from Milan, a modeling contract for his companies, an endorsement deal, perhaps even a romantic advance, but nothing had prepared her for what came next. I want to hire you to carry my child. The words hung in the air like smoke. Camila blinked, certain she had misheard. Her lips parted, but no sound emerged. She felt the world tilt slightly, as if the expensive Persian carpet beneath her feet had shifted. Excuse me, she managed finally. Rashid moved to the leather chair across from her, settling into it with practiced ease. His gaze never wavered. From her face, $1 million, complete medical care, privacy guaranteed. The arrangement would be strictly professional. Camila's mind reeled. She had heard of such arrangements, of course, whispered about in certain circles, but to be confronted with it so directly, so matter-of-factly, left her speechless. Why me? The question escaped before she could stop it. His dark eyes assessed her with the same intensity she imagined he used in business negotiations. You possess the qualities I require: intelligence, beauty, health, discretion. Your modeling career suggests discipline and professionalism. The clinical nature of his words sent a chill through her, like she was being evaluated for a job, which, she realized with growing shock, she was. And after, she asked quietly, after the birth, you receive the final payment. Full custody remains. With me you would have no further obligations or rights regarding the child. Camila stood abruptly, pacing to the window. The city lights were beginning to twinkle in the gathering dusk. Below, life continued normally while her world turned upside down. $1 million, the sum echoed in her mind. Her brother Diego flashed through her thoughts. Sweet, talented Diego, lying in that hospital bed in Barcelona. The experimental treatment that could save his life cost more than she could earn in 5 years of modeling. Even with her success, the medical bills were drowning her family. This is insane, she whispered to the glass. Behind her, Rashid's voice remained steady. Perhaps, but I am a man who gets what he wants, Miss Santos. I want an heir. I want it handled efficiently, without emotional complications. You need money. This arrangement serves both our purposes. She turned back to him, studying his face for any sign of humanity beneath the cold proposition. Don't you want love? A real family? Something flickered in his eyes then, so briefly she almost missed it. Pain perhaps, or loss, but it vanished as quickly as it had appeared. Love is a luxury I cannot afford. My family expects certain things. Legacy, continuity, power. I intend to provide those things on my terms. The honesty in his voice surprised her, not just the words, but the weight behind them. This wasn't cruelty or callousness. This was a man who had convinced himself that emotions were weaknesses he could not afford. I need time to think, she said finally. He nodded once, rising from his chair. You have 48 hours. After that, I will make this offer to someone else. As he moved toward the door, Camila called after him. What if I say yes and then change my mind? He paused, his hand on the golden door handle. When he looked back at her, she saw something new in his expression, not just control or authority, but a vulnerability he was trying hard to hide. Then I would respect your decision, Miss Santos. I am many things, but I am not a monster. After he left, Camila sank back into the plush sofa, her mind racing. The suite felt enormous and empty around her. Outside, Dubai glittered like scattered diamonds, beautiful and cold. She thought of Diego again, of her mother's tears when the doctors delivered their verdict, of the hope that had flickered in her brother's eyes when she promised to find a way to help him. $1 million would not just save his life, it would give her family security for the first time since their father's death. But at what cost? To carry a child for 9 months, to feel it grow and move within her, only to give it away like a commodity. Could she really do such a thing? Could anyone? Her phone buzzed. A message from her mother. Diego had taken a turn for the worse. They needed to start the treatment immediately or risk losing him entirely. Camila closed her eyes, feeling the weight of impossible choices pressing down on her. Love and sacrifice. Family and strangers. Hope and heartbreak. Tomorrow she would have to decide which mattered more. Hidden Truths. 2 days later, Camila found herself back in the same suite, a signed contract in her trembling hands. The decision had torn her apart, but Diego's deteriorating condition left her no choice. Rashid had been waiting, as composed as ever, though she caught him glancing at his watch more frequently than necessary. The medical procedures began immediately. Private clinics, the best doctors money could buy, treatments that felt more like luxury spa visits than medical examinations. Rashid spared no expense, but he maintained his emotional distance. Their interactions were brief, professional, centered entirely around the progress of the pregnancy. It was during the 3rd month that things began to shift. Camila had been staying in a private wing of Rashid's Dubai mansion, a sprawling estate that seemed to stretch endlessly across manicured gardens and marble courtyards. The morning sickness had been brutal, leaving her weak and pale most days. She didn't expect him to notice, but he did. "You look unwell," Rashid observed one morning as she picked at her breakfast on the terrace. The concern in his voice surprised her. Camila managed a weak smile. "It's normal. The doctor says it should pass soon." He studied her face with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. "You're not eating enough." "I'm trying. Everything makes me nauseous." Without another word, he disappeared. An hour later, a team of nutritionists arrived, followed by a private chef specializing in meals for expectant mothers. The gesture was practical, efficient, and completely unexpected. "You didn't have to do this," Camila told him later that evening. As she enjoyed her first full meal in weeks, Rashid stood by the pool, his reflection shimmering in the water. "The child's health is paramount," he said simply. But she noticed he didn't look at her when he said it. As the weeks passed, these small kindnesses multiplied. Prenatal yoga instructors appeared. The guest wing was redecorated with softer colors and more comfortable furniture. A library of books on pregnancy and child development materialized. Though Camila never saw who brought them, the change became undeniable during her 5th-month checkup. They sat together in the doctor's office, watching the ultrasound screen. As their child moved and kicked, the heartbeat filled the room, strong and steady. "Everything looks perfect," the doctor announced cheerfully. "Would you like to know the gender?" Camila looked at Rashid, expecting his usual clinical detachment. Instead, she found him staring at the screen with an expression she had never seen before. Wonder, perhaps, or longing. "A son," he whispered when the doctor revealed the news. For a moment, the careful walls he had built around himself crumbled. Camila saw, past the billionaire, past the cold businessman, to the man underneath. A man who wanted to be a father more than he had ever admitted, even to himself. That evening changed everything between them. Camila found Rashid in his study, staring out at the city lights. For once, he looked approachable, almost vulnerable. "May I ask you something personal?" she said softly. He turned, and she was struck by how tired he looked. "Of course. Why no, wife? No family of your own?" His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "My father arranged my engagement when I was 25. Sarita was beautiful, intelligent, from a good family. We were to be married within the year." He paused and Camila waited, sensing there was more. "She died in a car accident 3 weeks before our wedding. After that, my parents tried to arrange other matches, but I refused. I decided that business partnerships were more reliable than emotional ones." The pain in his voice was carefully controlled, but unmistakable. Camila felt her heart ache for him. "I'm sorry. That must have been devastating." "It was a long time ago," he said, but the words sounded hollow. "Is that why you chose this arrangement? To avoid the risk of loving someone?" Rashid met her gaze, and for the first time, she saw him truly vulnerable. "Love makes you weak, Camila. It makes you hope for things that can be taken away in an instant. This way, I get what I need without the danger of losing myself again." But even as he spoke the words, Camila could see the lie in them. The way he had started looking at her during their medical appointments. The gentle way he steadied her when she felt dizzy. The protective instinct that had led him to reorganize his entire household around her comfort. He was already losing himself, whether he admitted it or not. "What about you?" he asked suddenly. "You're sacrificing 9 months of your life, your body, for money. That seems equally cold." Camila placed her hand on her growing belly. "It started that way," she admitted. "But now I feel connected to him, to this little life we created. It scares me." Rashid stepped closer, his dark eyes searching her face. "It scares me too." The admission hung between them, honest and raw. They were supposed to be strangers bound by contract, but somewhere, along the way, they had become something more, something neither of them had planned for that night. As Camila lay in bed feeling their son move within her, she realized that the most dangerous thing about their arrangement wasn't the money or the contract or the eventual separation, that it was the growing certainty that she was falling in love with a man who was terrified of loving her back. Love beyond contracts. The crisis came without warning in Camila's 7th month. She had been reading in the garden when sharp pains tore through her abdomen. The book fell from her hands as she doubled over, crying out in alarm. Within minutes, Rashid was there, his face pale with terror as he scooped her into his arms. "Get the car," he barked to his driver, his usual composure shattered. "Call Dr. Hassan, tell him we're coming now." The ride to the hospital blurred together in a haze of pain and fear. Rashid held her hand the entire time, murmuring reassurances in both English and Arabic. She had never seen him so afraid, so completely stripped of his careful control. "The baby," she gasped between contractions. "Something's wrong." "Nothing is wrong," he said fiercely, though his voice trembled. "You're both going to be fine. I won't let anything happen to either of you." The words surprised them both, not to the baby, to both of them. Hours later, their son arrived early but healthy, his small cries filling the sterile delivery room. Camila held him for the first time, tears streaming down her face as she marveled at his perfect tiny fingers and dark hair that matched his father's. Rashid stood frozen beside the bed, staring at his son with an expression of pure wonder. When the nurse asked if he wanted to hold the baby, he nodded mutely, his hands shaking as she placed the infant in his arms. "He's so small," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "So perfect." Camila watched him fall in love with their child in real time. The careful businessman disappeared completely, replaced by a man overwhelmed with tenderness and protectiveness. When the baby wrapped his tiny fist around Rashid's finger, she saw tears glisten in his dark eyes. "What will you name him?" she asked softly. "Omar," Rashid replied without hesitation. "It means flourishing, prosperous. He will have everything I can give him." The next few days passed in a strange bubble of new parenthood. Rashid barely left the hospital, conducting business calls from Camila's room while she recovered. He learned to change diapers with the same intensity he brought to corporate mergers. He held Omar for hours, talking to him in soft Arabic that Camila didn't understand but found beautiful. It was on her 3rd day in the hospital that reality crashed back down on them. Rashid's lawyer arrived with the final paperwork, the contract completion, custody documents, the bank transfer authorization for Camila's final payment. The lawyer spread the documents across the hospital table, explaining each one in clinical detail. Camila signed where indicated, her hand moving automatically while her heart broke with each signature. Rashid watched her sign, his jaw tight, Omar sleeping peacefully in his arms. "This concludes our business arrangement," the lawyer announced when the last signature was complete. "Miss Santos, the final payment has been transferred to your account. Mr. Al-Fahim, you have full legal custody of the child." After the lawyer left, silence filled the room. Camila stared at Omar, memorizing every detail of his face. Tomorrow she would leave Dubai. Tomorrow she would never see her son again. "I should go pack," she said quietly, not trusting her voice to remain steady. "Camila, wait." Rashid's voice stopped her at the door. When she turned back, he was standing with Omar still in his arms, looking lost and uncertain. "I need to tell you something," he continued, his usual confidence nowhere to be found. "These past months, they changed everything. You changed everything." She held her breath, afraid to hope. "I told myself this was just business, that I could keep my emotions separate. But watching you carry our son, seeing your strength, your sacrifice for your family." He paused, struggling with words that didn't come easily to a man accustomed to commanding boardrooms. "I love you," he said finally, the words raw and honest. "I love you, and I'm terrified of it, but I can't let you walk away. Not from me, and not from him." Camila felt her heart stop. then restart with painful intensity. Rashid. I know this wasn't part of our deal. He rushed on. I know you have your life to return to, your family, your career, but I'm asking, no, I'm begging you to stay. Not as part of a contract, but as my wife, as Omar's mother, as the woman I want to spend my life loving. The words she had never dared hope to hear hung in the air between them. Camila looked at this powerful man, reduced to vulnerability by love, holding their child like his most precious treasure. My brother needs continued treatment, she said softly. He'll have the best care money can provide, for the rest of his life, Rashid promised. Your family will never want for anything. I don't know anything about being a billionaire's wife. I don't know anything about being a husband, he admitted. But I know I want to learn with you. Camila crossed the room slowly, reaching out to touch Omar's soft cheek. Their son stirred, opening dark eyes that looked so much like his father's. What if we hurt each other, she whispered. Rashid shifted Omar to one arm, using his free hand to cup Camila's face. Then we'll heal together. Love isn't about avoiding pain, Habibti, it's about choosing to trust despite it. The Arabic endearment, spoken with such tenderness, broke through her last defenses. She leaned into his touch, letting herself believe in the impossible. Yes, she whispered, and watched joy transform his features. Yes, to all of it. Their kiss was soft, careful, full of promise and new beginnings. Omar dozed peacefully between them, unaware that he had just gained not just a father, but a real family. 6 months later, their wedding was a private affair in the garden where Camila had first felt their son kick. Diego, healthy and strong thanks to his successful treatment, walked her down the aisle. Omar gurgled happily in Rashid's arms as they exchanged vows under the desert stars. What had begun as a cold business transaction had become the greatest love story of their lives. Sometimes Camila reflected as she danced with her husband while their son slept in his grandmother's arms. The most beautiful things came from the most unexpected places. Love, it turned out, was the one contract that couldn't be negotiated. It could only be given freely, trusted completely, and cherished forever.